This exhibition, Carlos Reyes 18, is the artist's first museum solo exhibition, and it brings together a selection of works made across the last 8 years of Carlos's practice. The show really tries to home in on the persistent way in which Carlos really thinks about material poetics in his work, particularly through recasting significant found and everyday objects, many of which have been kind of removed from circulation in the built environment, into austere forms that sometimes reference in their formal qualities the legacies and techniques of minimalism, but really refocus the historical movement's emphasis on industrial finish to instead foreground the idiosyncratic residues of different kind of elemental forces like breath and touch, or light and heat, and human influence on objects in the built world, and then recast these objects into surprising and strange configurations. The West Side Club work, which are these 4 rectilinear monoliths that are about 8 feet tall and hover eerily about 1.5 inches over the ground. They are made out of planks of wood, as well as some plate glass compartments on that. But the primary material is wood that the artist salvaged from the West Side Club in New York, which is a club, a sauna and spa that's now closed.
I've never put the 2 larger works together like this. With Promesa, it relates to the body, but how the body, I think, is activated by the architecture or something, but really, there's so almost like a desire to escape one's body sometimes. That is this form of desire that I think I can see in West Side Club, for example, where people are sort of scratching where they're from, but they're in New York City, and they're engaged in this highly charged situation, at least the former use of that club. And you can physically see this desire to mark and to leave their mark on this location. And then the Promesa piece is the desire to want light and electricity. And it's complicated because like what you do, like, you know, sometimes if you do have power and light, that means that somebody else might not have it because the resources as we've been presented to them are limited.
Promesa is the focal point. It provides a lot of light in this room and is on a pretty substantial pedestal that is organized towards the front of the space. The new works, which are these terrazzo reliefs that are so low hung, which are titled 18.
So I wanted to reinforce that relationship through proximity to the ground, for instance, and that's why they sort of sit there. They also sit more or less at the height that a wheel well on a truck would be. So you have the markings of truck tires, very faint ones, but they are there, more or less at the height that you would see a 18-wheeler truck tire.
This group of glass works that are made between 2016 and 2017 and are some of the earliest works in the show. Carlos has talked about them to a certain extent as sketches of his own breath.
I did just focus on the simplicity of one bubble breath. And then in a lot of them, there's a constriction too. So there's an expansion and contraction in most of them. And I guess in that way, I did see the relationship to breathing and breath. And a couple of them look like apparatuses for different things. The shelf structure along the wall was a curatorial decision, which I found really interesting because they understand the space and the nuances of the space quite well, even if it is more or less a rectangle. Selby proposed this shelving, and then when we were installing the terrazzo works, the lower hang seemed to sort of pick up on the shelving and sort of draw your eye around the room in a way that I appreciated because there was a non-linearity there. Well, it goes up and down as well, and that up and down, you could read it as on, off, or even a heartbeat up, down, and you can see the shape of it as your eye is sort of drawn across the room. For me, it was a desire to unravel the show more slowly so that upon first viewing, it seems like a pretty understated, minimal show, but then you start to see that there's actually quite a lot of subtle shifts that unfold over time and other things that you might have to stare at a little bit longer to see their relationship with each other. There's some discovery embedded into the space.